This conference will now be recorded.
We're live.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Town Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Member Bingham?
Here.
Vice Chair Cody?
Present.
Member Cassidy?
Here.
Member Hendon?
Here.
Chair Slow.
Here. We'll all rise if we can for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes, please.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to welcome Bruce and Carolyn to the board, and I think it's time that we had a new election for a chair and a vice chair. So I will open it up for that motion for name the chair.
Excuse me, Chair Slow, your Chair Slow. Yeah, call on me to explain the procedure.
Oh,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, what?
Call on me to explain the procedure because we're no
Okay, I'm
longer.
calling on you.
Okay, for the new orders and procedure established by the Town Commission for advisory boards, we're now voting by ballot. So I will go ahead and hand out a ballot to each member. Choose one candidate. I'll give you a minute to go and then just give it back to me and then I'll tally it up, okay?
Thank you.
Do you need a pen? I got a pen.
This is for
The chair.
the chair.
Betty, do you have a pen? Okay, on a 3-2, Mary and Cody got the chair position. Okay. Congratulations. Next, we'll move to doing the vice chair. After we do the vice chair, then you guys can decide if you're gonna let him continue to lead the meeting or if you want to switch and start leading the meeting for this chair, okay?
Okay.
No chair.
Big shoes.
Good luck.
This is for vice chair. Okay, on a 3-2, Bruce Hendon got the vice chair position. So it's up to you if you want to decide if you want to chair this meeting or if you want to wait till your next one and allow Robert to chair this.
Like you, chair.
You would? Oh, well, thank you, former Chair Slow.
You're welcome, Chair.
I feel I have big shoes to fill.
Oh,
No reference to the size of his feet, just the measure of his accomplishment as the chair. All right, so I will call Item 3.
Mhm.
For the quasi judicial hearing for the variance request for 8 Inlet K Drive. Proceedings are now called to order. At this time, any ex parte communications should either be disclosed by identifying the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, or any correspondence be provided to the town clerk and made a part of the public record. In addition, each member of the board may identify the existence of any investigations or site visits he or she has conducted, or any expert opinions received, and disclose any conflicts of interest on this matter.
Marianne, at this time, you'll just address each member to see if they have.
Okay?
Excuse
We'll
me.
start with Bruce.
Thank
Can you
you.
hear? I'm sorry.
I did make a site visit to the location because there was a number of issues at play, including the mangrove, the intercoastal waterway, the existence of the present dock. So it allowed clarification in my mind to the issues at hand.
Thank you. Betty?
I made a visit to the site. I couldn't go into the property because no one was there, but I did go around and look in the backyards to see what the dock looked like. That's about it.
I just did a drive-by. I did not get out of my car just to see the location of the property.
I also made a site visit to see where the floating dock was in relation to the neighboring property for my edification.
I called Dr. Thrower on Tuesday, November 9th, and asked if I could stop by the property. She was on vacation and she told me how to get in the gate. I visited on Friday the 12th to see for myself the situation with the dock. And then Dr. Thrower called me yesterday to see if I wanted to stop by, not knowing that I had already gone by, and I explained that I'd already been and got the clarification that I needed.
Okay, I'm going to ask if Carla now would read the application into the record.
So this is a quasi-judicial hearing for variance request for 8 Inlet K Drive, an application submitted by Patricia F. Thrower as owner for parcel of property located at 8 Inlet K Drive, Ocean Ridge, Florida, 33435, requesting a variance from the provisions of the Land Development Code, Chapter 64, zoning, Article 4, marinas, docks, and bulkheads. Section 64-77, location, type, and height of docks, floating docks, and pilings, to permit a floating dock to be located 3 feet from the property line at east end of seawall. The variance will allow for a 3 feet setback from the property line and a relief of 7 feet from the required 10 feet setback. The property is located at 8 Inlet K Drive, property control numbers 46, 43, 45, 22, 11, 00080, and legally described as Inlet K Lot 8. All the fees have been paid, and I did not receive any additional correspondence prior to this meeting regarding the application.
Thank you, Carla. We will then proceed with the hearing on this matter. Will the town clerk please swear in the witnesses?
Will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
When you come forward, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in, and please speak directly into the microphone.
The applicant will now make its presentation in the matter.
Good morning. I'm Albert Thrower. My wife and I own the property in question. We decided that we would take advantage of our location. We see so many people out there enjoying the intercoastal up and down with their kayaks, their paddle boards. We have 7 grandchildren, and they enjoy this activity. So I looked into the prospect of how to make a safe entry and exit from our dock. The only option was a floating dock. I called several marine installers. They came, looked at the property, and they chose this location where it is currently as the only safe spot to put it. The reason being that we have an existing dock, which is permitted, obviously cannot be moved, changed, or altered. The only other option would have been to put the floating dock on the other side of my dock, which would have put it very close to the intercoastal. The current location of floating dock therefore was chosen, and we picked the smallest size that we could. These come in sections. We have 2 sections. They are basically 4 feet wide, and one section being only 4 feet wide would be unstable and would not be safe to enter and exit the floating dock in and out of the water. We put it as close as we could to the existing dock and tried to minimize the impact. That is essentially the reason we chose it. The reason for the location, in addition to what I put down in the application, is pretty straightforward and simple. We are unfortunately located in a very, very high traffic, high wave action area. There's nothing we can do about that. That is something that would have to be dealt with through, I guess, the state and other people to reduce wave action in the area. And putting the dock at the exposed corner of our property would have been unsafe and not a appropriate location for the dock. Can I answer any questions?
Any questions for Dr. Thrower? Okay, thank you.
So,
The town staff will now make its presentation in the matter.
Good morning, Chair, board members, Corey O'Gorman, Town Planner. Some background on the item that's being presented today. Came to the town via code enforcement complaint received about a floating platform. The town investigated and found that the floating platform was installed without a permit and doesn't meet the required setbacks. The property owner didn't remove the dock during the variance process, so the item was taken to the code enforcement board. The property is still in the code enforcement process. For the applicant to be able to apply for a permit for the floating platform to remain in the current location, the variance is needed to be granted. A floating platform would be used for access to the water for jet skis, paddleboards, kayaks, etc. And as reviewed by the town clerk, this application requests a variance from the requirements of section 6477 to allow a floating platform within 3 feet to be located 3 feet from the property line at the east end of the seawall. Section 6477 requires floating dock to be located no more than 5 feet into any waterway line, or established bulkhead line, or extend closer than 10 feet to the property line. The balance of the staff report provides explanation of the code requirements as well as the application itself and the criteria that is required to be considered by the Board of Adjustments when granting variance. I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I do have a question, Mary Ann.
Okay.
Just regarding section 6477, it also, that part of the code also says that the installation of such a platform which does not require the installation of pilings does not require a permit from the town. And it didn't appear to me that this floating dock is installed with pilings. Maybe if you can elaborate on the installation and how it qualifies as violating the code.
Thank you. Durante Guy, building official, Town of Ocean Ridge, also chief code enforcement officer. Floating structure which is secured mechanically to an existing dock requires a permit. If it is connected via a rope, it does not need a permit. And in this case, it is mechanically connected to the existing dock.
It's mechanically connected to the bulkhead with, it's like hard whips, essentially, like you'd have for a boat. So it's bolted to the bulkhead, but it didn't appear to me, I mean, unless I missed something, that it was attached to the dock itself.
Okay, please allow me to locate the code article. It actually is in the code enforcement citation, but I'm looking for it, and I'll give you that answer in a few seconds.
Thank you.
Just for clarification, the issue at hand, from the way I understand it, is the setback from the property line, not the issue of the extension into the waterway. That's correct.
And maybe this is something gonna be for Guy and Christie, and I'm just looking at the section of the code. Depending on the pilings itself, I do see what Carolyn is saying, but even without the permit required, they still need to meet setbacks. So it does say such a platform shall be moored between the seawall or bulkhead and docking pilings and shall conform to the setback requirement established in paragraph B and C.
Okay,
So it still will need to meet setback even if no permit is required,
Okay.
regardless of whether it has pilings.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I noticed that they have a lot of examples where there are floating docks. Oh, do we bring code enforcement against all of those also? Because some of them are examples of just exactly why we have the setbacks we do. Because they are close enough to the property line that they might brings the ability of the neighbor to use their area adequately.
That may be a question for Mr. Guy. He's finished his review.
And perhaps I can speak to that issue while we're waiting for Mr. Guy. You know, there's always, in looking at it from a code enforcement perspective, there's always going to be examples throughout town where you will find something that's a similar violation. And you're absolutely right, because I think your point is, then we need to address each of those violations. And I think that's something as the town is evolving in its code enforcement. We're looking at coming back with some tweaks to the code enforcement process. We'll see some more efficiency and effectiveness in code enforcement and making sure that the code is applied across the board in a fair manner. So that is an issue I think that we're looking at internally, just to make sure that when we do address the code enforcement situation, if there's other similar situations, we address those as well.
Yes.
Or we make modifications to our code.
Right. And Betty, currently, our code enforcement is done by complaint. So we only investigate code enforcement if there's a complaint or if somebody is doing an inspection like Mr. Guy and he sees something.
The police don't report any code enforcement that they see going on.
Not generally. If there's a life safety issue, then of course they're going to report something.
However, my problem with giving permits to break the code is that then everybody wants to do it. And pretty soon, there's one example here where it appears that the thing on the floating dock, the keel was over the property line. I may have misread the picture. But, yeah, that one. It appears that they've got the floating dock, and that's when the codes were put in, they were, many of these things were considered in reading the code, and I think maybe they might be taken into consideration.
I don't think that's the structure in question. I think that was an example used if there are others that exist.
I know there are others that exist. What I was saying is the reason the code was written as it was,
Oh, I see.
so you don't get these where a neighbor is encroaching on the other neighbor's property and ability to use their dock.
Mr. Guy, are you ready?
Yes, so the article that Carla had quoted, which is E, floating platforms and docks, it goes on to say, so such platform shall be moored, meaning connected by rope. And it is allowed to be attached to the seawall. So when you have a mechanical connection, we need a permit. And today we do not have a permit. Obviously, the permit would not have been approved because it's violating the setback, which is within the 10-foot setback from the adjacent property. So we do not have a property, and yes, a permit is needed if you are mechanically connecting to a structure.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the town's presentation?
I'd like to mention that the dock is still in place, which is the reason why we ended up in code enforcement. And other properties have actually been notified, and they have removed their floating structure, and the code enforcement was withdrawn. And in this case, it has not been moved, which is the reason why we still also have an active code enforcement case against this property for this floating structure.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
we also, just for the record, read items A through G. So if you see the application, A through G, so you're gonna read into record, like for example, A, that the special conditions and circumstances exist, and I'll read the respondents' responses into record. So we'll go one by one. You can just read A and then give me a chance for me to
Okay,
respond.
As regards the justification of the variance, that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district.
The applicant responded, this variance is the result of installing a floating dock without a permit. Our property is located on the southwest corner at the end of Inlet K, exposing the seawall to high boat traffic and severe wave action from the large boats that pass up and down the intercoastal, often at high speeds, and many passing close to our property. We are not located in a no-wake zone. Therefore, boats of all sizes travel at high speeds and down the intercoastal and send large waves into our seawall. Across from our property is a protected mangrove area that is very shallow and surrounded by rocks. This forces boat traffic going up and down our south canal to travel close to our seawall to avoid the shallow water. The section of the canal closest to our seawall is the deepest and most used area for boat traffic going up and down the canal on the south side of the property. This boat traffic generates wave as there is no restriction on a boat speed in this area. We need the floating dock to launch our kayak and paddleboard. Our dock is between 8 to 10 feet above water. This height makes it impossible to launch a kayak or paddleboard from the dock and then get it back up onto our dock. A floating dock is the only way to manage these watercrafts from our property safely. We have 7 grandchildren who use the kayak and paddleboard frequently. We feel this floating dock is only safe option from them and ourselves to launch the kayak paddleboard.
That the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant.
The applicant responded, we are in an area of the intercoastal that does not restrict boat speeds. The existing boat dock is permitted and cannot be moved. The weight and waves created by the boat traffic pummel our seawall on a daily basis. We do not live here during hurricane season. We are very concerned that the floating dock, if moved closer to the intercoastal, could become a navigational hazard if it is dislodged from this new exposed position during a hurricane. This fact was pointed out to us by a marine installer at the time he chose the current location for the floating dock.
That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the zoning ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district.
The applicant responded, there are many other floating docks that exist in the town that violate this town code. That is, they are closer to the property line of the 10 feet restriction. Voters are included. Hence, we would not be asking for anything that does not already exist in many areas of the town.
That literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance, and would work unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant.
The current location of the floating dock is in the most protected area, minimizes the risk from waves and boat wakes suddenly rocking the floating dock and causing an injury to anyone standing on the docks or trying to launch a wavecraft. This specifically applies to young children and older adults boarding a kayak or paddleboard. We have 7 grandchildren and are concerned that they could fall either on the floating dock or into the water. The current location was chosen by marine installers with safety as the main concern. Moving the dock to the other side of the boat dock to conform with the ordinance exposes it to a large wave coming in from the intercoastal waterway and puts it at risk for the boat traffic traveling down the South Canal. The South Canal is the deepest adjacent to our seawall, making boaters hug my side of the South Canal as they pass my property. In addition, we are not here in peak hurricane season. Should the strong winds and wave action cause the floating dock to become dislodged, it could create a navigation hazard in that location. This is another reason marine installer advises to put it in the current location.
That the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure.
The applicant responded, we are asking to allow the dock to remain in its current safe and protected location. There is no other location on the seawall that would not expose the floating dock to the risk listed above in section B.
That the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the ordinance.
The applicant responded, the dock does not obstruct navigation and is protected by the existing boat dock and lift. Many boaters use the South Canal come awfully close to our seawall as this is where the water is deepest. Putting the dock on our west side of the existing boat dock would expose it to additional wave action from intercoastal waterway and possible interference with boat navigation.
That such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare.
The applicant responded, allowing the dock to remain in its current location will not interfere with anyone's use of their property. It also is the safest location for the boat traffic in the canal and minimize the risk of falling from unobserved waves striking the dock.
Thank you, Carla. At this time, any other member of the public who wishes to submit relevant information to the board may come forward and speak for a maximum of 3 minutes each. Please indicate whether you are for or against the project or neither for nor against the project. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Fornatora. This is my husband, Gil Fornatora. We live at 7 Inlet K Drive, the property next to lot number 8. And we have a short statement here this morning and some pictures that we would like the board to see as well. We have been sworn in. We have lived here at 7 Inlet K for over 43 years. When we considered Ocean Ridge, it was considered the most desirable location for its high values, consistency of safety, administration, police and fire rules, regulations, and building codes. We strongly considered all of the above in the decision to live in this beautiful town. There were multiple locations available when deciding the location of the dock at Lot 8. The lift and floating dock has 165 feet from the property line at number 7 to the intercoastal. And recently they had new construction of a seawall from Lot 7 to the intercoastal and north to Lot 9. It is preferable to locate these installations, of course, so as not to obstruct views from living areas, but building codes should be considered. In regard to Lot 8 comments of navigational hazards, safety, liability, etc., it should be noted that Lot 8's request to abut Lot 7 property line merely transfers that exposure to Lot 7. Sorry. The totality of the floating dock installation with its platform, dock, guide rails, metal stanchions bolted to seawall cap, and board rack violates, in our opinion, a few codes. And those violations are detrimental to the adjacent property Lot 7 in a number of ways. We respectfully request the variance be denied, allowing it would set a precedent leading to an open door for other requests for the same variance and diminishes effectiveness of existing town codes. And we have some copies of some pictures in our statement that we have available to hand out if you would like.
Yes, I'm Gil Fornatora. I'm a graduate engineer and a consulting engineer prior to starting my own business, and I helped prepare this. And we have a packet of a copy of this and some updated photos to give a clearer and more accurate picture of the existing installation at number 8. And if you have any questions in regard to that, we'll be happy to answer them.
Do you want to hand
Hand them out.
No, we gave them.
Pictures you're showing now? Yeah, the pictures I'm showing now are what he, I just got a copy before the meeting started, so the picture that I'm showing now is what he's handing out, but you're more than welcome to also give them individually to each member and staff as well.
I gave them to you.
You gave me one copy.
You only gave her one copy.
No, I gave her the packet of 10 copies. Said right on the outside of the envelope, 10 copies.
No, I only got, here we go.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
You can give them the-
Oh, I didn't have that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And I can go over each photo with you if you would like.
I believe some of the members of the board have questions for you, so we'd be happy to answer them.
And I'd like to say that
We
the,
have some questions.
oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for that and for these pictures. Mrs. Fornatori, you mentioned that by having that, all the structure there at the thrower's property, that it transfers the liability to your property. Can you explain that? I mean, is your property taking more of a beating? Is that what it is? I don't understand.
No, the answer is that they are saying that in the event of any tidal action, hurricanes or boat waves action, what have you, that the location of that platform, if dislodged, will only bring it towards us because all of the directional forces would be in our direction from west to east. So whatever happens in that installation in a bad way, whether it be storm damage, hurricane, what have you, would be west to east with the rising of the water and would be towards our property.
Okay, thank you.
And I can
How
go over
close
the-
are these holding trees to the property?
I beg your pardon.
How close is this structure to the property line?
Right on it.
It's just within 3
Right
feet.
on the property line?
It's about 3 feet.
Not even.
Not even.
So if you go over on the photo 1, first of all, I'd say on photo 1, which is an aerial view of 7 and 8 in a north-south orientation. And you can see the seawall stretching from the property line all the way to the intercoastal, which is 165 feet. And you can also see that there is a dock and a choice to build that dock was certainly available because a new seawall was built just recently prior to the installation of the floating dock and the lift installation. So the seawall had to be built. And after the seawall, I presume, I don't know how you would build the dock before a seawall, but the dock had many, many choices of where to be placed, and the boat lift, many, many choices. And additionally, the location of a floating dock was a multitude of choices available because the seawall was built from our property line 165 feet to the intercoastal, and there's all kinds of solutions that could have been made. Then on number 2, you can see the totality of the installation, and you'll also notice that the cap on the seawall is elevated, it looks like about at least a foot, which is foot above the standard height of all of the seawall caps on the island going down from the intercoast from our property all the way east. So there's a range there, and then the installation you can see of the stanchions that are bolted to the seawall cap are very, very close to the property line. Then on number 3, it just gives you a close-up of the stanchions that are bolted to the seawall with the floating dock in the background. And then the next photograph, you can see the board rack with the boards installed and the closeness of the whole structure to the seawall and our property line. And then, of course, the final, just the board rack alone. And then we enclose an article I'm sure you're all familiar with in the Coastal Star regarding ordinances and building codes and adherence thereto. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, can I ask the attorney a question?
Certainly.
What are the legal ramifications if somebody is on their property and tries to go to the floating dock and injures himself or herself? What are the legal ramifications if the person is on the neighbor's property when he or she tries to get on the dock?
Well, from a legal perspective, anyone can sue anyone. So the potential, if you're a plaintiff's attorney, is to sue everybody. And then slowly through the process, people will be dismissed down. I think the success of liability against the neighboring property owners would be unlikely unless there was some type of negligence there. If the lawsuit is based on negligence, obviously it might be based on this floating dock. But, it's a gamble. Court's a gamble, and you never know what's going to happen. Everybody's human, the judges too. So you could get wrapped up in a lawsuit that ultimately is not successful against you, but it could take time and money to get out of it.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments from the audience?
Myself, Michael Michalek, 5 Engel Drive. I want to point this out to everybody. A variance on any property runs with the property in perpetuity. That means long past the applicants, long past the applicants' grandchildren, long past the existence of that current dock, it runs in perpetuity with the property. That means when that house gets torn down, the next builder of that house will put another floating dock in 3 feet to the property line if you allow this to happen today. That's why does this exist? Why do we have a 10-foot set line of sight? When you look at the applicant's property, how's their house angled? House is angled in a way that gives the full view of the intercoastal, which is the most desirable view on that property. I agree. The neighbor on number 7, what is their view? They're viewing south, due south, but they have a view to that intercoastal property too. By putting something in that view, in that setback, you're obstructing their property. You're actually reducing the value of their property. While the applicant has to prove that their value would be impacted. Is their value impacted? No, because they can put that dock on the opposite side. Does it have to be that dock? No. There's all kinds of installations that you can have in order to get somebody with a kayak down onto the ground. Mechanical, electrical, all kinds of things, platforms that raise up and down out of the water. As you get boats out of the water, you can get a kayak down onto the water. You can create a platform that goes electrically up. It's not what the applicant chose to do. The applicant chose to have this particular dock because it's probably a very cost-effective measure in order to achieve what they want. But it impacts the neighbor and it actually impacts the value of that other property. And that's what we need to protect. It runs in perpetuity. And there's no hardship whatsoever on the applicant to move that dock and put it on the other side. Thank you.
Now the applicant may make final comments.
I don't really like talking in front of people like this. I think first of all, if everyone can look at the picture that's on the board, you can see the dock is well below the dock itself, the seawall itself. It doesn't even impact their view at all. They have very high ficus bushes between 7 and 8. I have been in their home. I sat there. I never could see the floating dock or any of the apparatus from their home. That's number one. Number two, when we asked the marine, and we had 3 different marine installers come to our home because we wanted to get a price comparison, quite honestly. Not that we need a different, but we just wanted a price comparison. I asked them all to put the floating dock closer to the intracoastal. I actually thought it would be more convenient for everyone to access the waterway at that location so that the floating dock would be further west, would be west of the boat dock. Every single person came and said, you really can't put it there. It's not safe. You will be injured getting on and off of it. And the waves from all these boats, if any of you live on the intracoastal, these waves are significant, sometimes 3-4 feet. If a big boat comes by. And they said there's, as Mrs. Cassidy pointed out, it is only attached by one section there. It's not, it doesn't have pilings in the water. It's just simply attached on one end. And they said we can't, liability-wise, you could sue us for putting it in this location. So I just wanted everybody to know this was not our first choice of a location. This was from the marine installers themselves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. When was that picture taken? Was it taken at high tide or low tide? It was up.
The picture, when was it taken?
Was it taken at high tide or low tide? If it's a floating dock, it moves up and.
Correct, but the tide there is probably no more than 1.5 to 2 feet, maybe 3 feet tops, I think. And I didn't take that picture. I believe that was the one from number 7. So I didn't take it.
That's the one in your application.
I don't.
Yes.
So you can see right there, that was a good picture. I would say that looks like to be high tide right there. As best I can tell.
Well, you can tell the height of the tide. If you look at the piling, you can see where the marking is of the, from the barnacles. So you can see this is maybe, looks like about maybe 6 to 8 inches below high tide, looking at the pilings.
Thank you. Staff will now make final comments. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just like to comment that the reference to the view that she made, the bushes were planted to hide the obstruction in the water on the property next door. We planted the bushes after that installation. Never our intention to have bushes there. But having not been in their house, I don't know what the extent of whatever other things they have, but they live 165 feet. And when choosing a property to live in or make installations in addition to that property, there are all kinds of proper choices to be made within laws, regulations, and codes. Thank you.
Thank you. Final comments by the town.
I just have one comment in comment to, or in reference to Mrs. Thrower's comment about the contractor. I just want to say it's unfortunate that the contractor did not check the town codes before giving them advice on the placement of the dock. We see this a lot. It's unfortunate. That's all I have.
I have a question. Did they get a permit to rebuild the dock when they rebuilt the seawall?
Yes.
They said that they had to rebuild that whole seawall.
Yes, so obviously I don't have all the documents in front of me, but during the research, if it was unpermitted, we would have noticed. So that did not come up as a flag.
So when they redid the seawall, they chose to put the dock where it was. How long ago was that?
You saying how long has the seawall been, sorry, the floating dock been in place?
Well, they said that they rebuilt the seawall. So along that whole area,
Right.
the two houses, how long ago was that?
I don't have those dates. I mean, the only date I could give you is that earlier this year, about March, is when we got the code enforcement complaint about the floating structure.
What I'm trying to get to is, did they not have a choice of moving the dock another 6 feet down? So they can put the floating dock in a safer place if that's where they wanted, when they redid the seawall.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, and you can have a lift, you can have a floating platform, you can have a different type of floating platform. There are many other options. You can have another stairs on the opposite side that allows you to go down. You can have some kind of protective device that will shield the floating dock. I mean, you can have ADA accessible lifts up and down. There are many options. You know, this is the one that the applicant chose. Thank you.
All right, at this time, do any members of the board have any questions for the staff, the applicant, or anyone who has spoken from the floor regarding this item?
I don't have questions. I have a number of comments. though.
Okay, well, so then I now declare the quasi judicial hearing closed. We'll now proceed with comments and deliberation by the board, and we'll start with you, Bruce.
So to the formator's comments about precedent, the very nature of this board of adjustment is to deal with individual variances. And we're very careful that precedent is not set because of the special circumstances involved in every case brought to this board. So what would necessarily affect the throwers, in my mind, does not affect every other lot in this community. Second of all, the raised cap that they mentioned with the new dock is really not the issue. And I think due to the rising tides has become the norm within Ocean Ridge. Every seawall I've seen adjusted has always been adjusted up, and I think it's probably appropriate. Upon my visit to this site, safety is absolutely the #1 concern here. The special circumstances that I directly observed there were a number of boats coming in and out of that canal, of which they are the point lot. I'm not on the Throwers property, but I've been to a number of intracoastal properties in our community. Getting on a boat from a lift that's adjacent to the intracoastal is dangerous enough. Docking on a lift on the intracoastal is dangerous enough by the wind, wave action, other boats. And then again, as the Throwers point out, is not a no-wake zone. So because of the mangrove to the south, there is a lot of boat traffic, and the boat traffic is shifted toward their side of the canal because of the rock and the shallow formation on the mangrove side. To Martin's point, which cannot be touched in perpetuity. That mangrove is there forever. In deference to the marine specialists' knowledge and expertise, I absolutely think keeping a floating dock as far away from the intracoastal was the appropriate choice to make.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comment, Betty?
Well, my thought was that they might have considered a floating dock when they built the longer dock. They had 126 feet frontage on the water there, I believe it is. Could they not have moved the major dock just a few feet further down? Because the purpose of the code is to allow everyone on the waterways to enjoy their property to the fullest and not have someone impinge upon that ability by structures.
Thank you.
I don't have much to say because Betty said it for me, but I am still concerned about the liability issue. And on one hand, I agree with you. I think this is fine, but on the other hand, I want to protect you. So that's my feeling.
Carolyn?
I just, in having seen the situation for myself, I think it is a unique situation in that the other side of the dock would be far more dangerous than where it is now. I also, it seems that the repair and enhancement of the seawall benefits everyone on Inlet K. I mean, with keeping back the water, particularly during like a king tide. And, to my earlier question about the code, section 6477, it's possible that the marine installers read what I read, that without pilings, it doesn't require a permit from the town. I mean, we spent a little time going over that and clarifying that, but when you read that, if you read it quickly, you may take away that it didn't require a permit. I'm just suggesting that. But again, as Bruce said, it comes back to the safety, and I think in that respect, given the nature of this point lot, where it is, that it is a unique situation that it would be dangerous on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion on the matter.
I make a motion that to approve the variance applied for by the Throwers for their loading dock.
I second that.
Okay. All those in favor, respond by saying aye.
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 If you feel comfortable, I can also do a roll call.
Okay.
If you would like for me to.
Thank you.
Member Hendon, how do you vote?
No,
Member Cassidy, how do you vote?
Aye.
Member Bingham, how do you vote?
no,
Member Sloat, how do you vote?
No,
Chair Cody, how do you vote?
Aye.
It was 3-2.
Motion carries. I know.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I know that you've taken your vote, but I do have an issue with how the outcome is. when and if we were ever to sell our property, that location of the Throwers floating dock impinges on the value of our house for sale. Anybody who comes we have an older house, will probably tear down that house, and then that contractor has something grandfathered in. It decreases the value of our house by where they have put their dock. And as to the not being able to see it, trying to be friendly neighbors, we did have the Throwers in our home. And they were sitting in the easterly direction, so weren't looking at the floating dock. And I planted those hedges prior to the installation that they put on the dock to hold the boards. And that obstructs our view completely going south. So you've made your decision, but I want you to know that it has impacted us in a way that is significant.
I have another question. If it can be proven that our value is diminished upon a sale, who do you think would be liable? The lot next door or the town?
No one.
No one would be liable to diminishing the value of the property?
It's a speculative concept.
Madam Chair, since the board has made its decision and the hearing's actually closed, we can't take any further evidence or comments on the case. They made their decision. If you want to, you also have the opportunity to appeal it to circuit court if you believe that your rights have been infringed.
I don't know if the mics must not be on because I didn't hear words.
It doesn't matter. I'll tell you that.
All right, thank you. We'll proceed with the next matter.
Yeah.
I'd like to call agenda item 4, the quasi judicial hearing for variance request for 26 Harbor Drive South. The proceedings are now called to order.
Good morning. My name is
Sorry,
Bob.
we're not ready for you yet.
Oh, we're just gonna start.
Sorry,
Appreciate the enthusiasm.
bit nervous here.
Quasi judicial hearing variance request for 26 Harbor Drive South, an application submitted by Angel Darlene Johnson as owner for a parcel property located at 26 Harbor Drive South, Ocean Ridge, Florida 33435, requesting a variance from the provisions of the Land Development Code, Chapter 64 zoning, Article 3 supplemental regulations, Section 64-41, accessory uses, buildings, and structures generally to permit a sun trellis to be located 7 feet 3 inches from the legal property line. The variance would allow for a 7 feet 3 inches setback from the property line and a relief of 17 feet 9 inches from the 25-foot required setback. The property is located at 26 Harbor Drive South, property control number 46, 43, 45, 2709, 0000320, and legally described as Ridge Harbor Estates, Lot 32. All fees have been paid, and I have not received any additional correspondence. Before you do the ex parte or after, it depends on you. We can do the same thing with A through G, where you read each one, and I'll read the applicant's response.
Would you prefer to do it at this point?
We can if you'd like to.
Okay, so we will now include the comments for justification of variance. These are the applicant's comments. That special conditions and circumstances exist, which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district.
The applicant responded, the applicant's home, 26 Harbor Drive South, Ocean Ridge, is approximately 1,000 feet from the ocean. The average wind speed for Ocean Ridge is approximately 10 miles per hour. However, the wind blowing directly off the surf tends to be stronger. The home is nestled at the precise base of the bridge. When the wind comes off the ocean across A1A, the entrance to Harbor Drive South is wide access point and the flow comes straight up the street until it meets a home right on the corner. This forces the wind to immediately change directions, and since it is blowing on a westward path, it finds a spot between the first two homes where it changes direction and turns this corner, sending it directly down the ridge and towards the flat area where the applicant's home and the canal meet. This change of the wind flow magnifies the wind's steady speed, and the flow approaches 20 or 25 miles an hour. The wind speed is steady on days when it gusts, it could be double. On days where it's stormy, you cannot go in the backyard because the wind force approaches the gale force condition. This increased wind speed is known as downwash, and without deflection and left on automatic tends to serve as the gateway for the wind. It is generally accepted within the meteorological societies that these areas tend to take the pounding to the betterment of all other surrounding property.
That the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant.
I did not finish item A, but the rest can be read in the application because it's about a whole page.
I thought I heard a pause, I'm sorry.
It's a whole page, I was turning the page, but it's all good. We'll start with item A can be, the full entirety can be seen in the package. The B, the special conditions and the circumstances concerning the sun and the wind have nothing to do with the applicant. These are direct forces stemming from nature. When the applicant purchased the home many years ago, she was a young female first-time home buyer. Her experience with outdoor living was next to zero. It was not evident at the time that her lovely home had such a deep-seated limitation. The property has approximately 50% of the available lot as empty space from the front of the home to the street. The back of the house has absolutely no lanai or extended soffits or anything which most of the neighbors enjoy. For whatever the reason, when this home was built, there was never any provisions made to provide shade of any kind for this particular dwelling. Had this home been built 10 or 20 foot closer to the street, her backyard would provide all the ample space necessary to create an outdoor R that could be used and cherished. If there is any special conditions or circumstances, it is that almost every other home in the surrounding area has some facility that was built into the structure providing shade or relief from the pervasive sun. The fact that this home has none and then is further prohibited by the 25-foot setback when the entire area is only 28 foot, leaving only 3 feet, makes it extremely restrictive and basically prevents the pursuit of any happiness.
That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the zoning ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district.
Applicant responded, the variance is being requested because there is a 25 feet setback from the edge of the canal encroaching back toward the house. The applicant has exhausted all and every avenue of research and expert opinion to discover why the 25-foot setback exists. The applicant has been made fully aware that the reason and purpose of the setback is to make certain that any homeowners bordering the property line in a 300-foot radius would not be affected by losing any sight line view from their property looking outward to the applicant's home. As a result, the applicant has contracted every homeowner individually and shared them the circumstances and the intended solution. Because the applicant has been neighbors with almost all the residents for many years, most of them have been the applicant's home for social events and are aware of the lack of shade and how comfortable it is in the heat. Each neighboring homeowner has looked at the property from their backyard and looked at the applicant's renderings and has given their consent and permission, stating that not only will their sight line not be impeded, rather it is enchantment over a barren deck. The addition of the beautiful shade structure will clean minimalist lines, will enhance their views from the backyard and increase the value of their home.
That literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance, and would work unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant.
The applicant responded, almost every home has an approach or lanai providing the same shade protection attached to their home. The applicant has spent thousands of dollars during the past 20 years of living at the property here in Ocean Ridge. During that time, the applicant has learned with firsthand experience that the pervasive heat from the storm destroys the very best solar fabrics on the market. It is unfortunate, but after a minimum of 2 years of direct daily exposure to the elements, they have to be replaced at a considerable expense, usually in the range of thousands of dollars. The daily pounding makes the fabric sun bleach and hard. What causes the rapid deterioration is the summer rains. After the fabric becomes saturated, then the sun comes out and dries it up. Then the fabric becomes brittle shortly after it begins to tear and leak, and then it is worthless. Added to this is the applicant has to deal with the wind tunnel effect at the base of the ridge, which lifts the umbrella off the deck and either throws the umbrella into the pool or worse, into the canal, which then costs more money to have someone retrieve it because the base is so heavy. It would be easy if the base of the umbrella was mounted to the deck. However, that would also be an encroachment upon a 25-foot setback because it would then be considered a permanent structure. In fact, there would be no difference with a 6-inch base of a post and umbrella than a 6-inch post for the shade structure. The only purpose of this post is to secure it from blowing over. The shade structure will need 2 posts to secure it in position. The engineer has come up with a solution that will allow the homeowner to cover the table for the entire family to sit and dine at while being protected from the rain and sun with the absolute minimalist requirements, 2 posts. The engineer has designed a solution where the structure can be cantilevered of 2 posts. Of 2 posts so that the area can be covered and the setback can be reduced considerably. Attached is the engineer's letter providing the details explaining why the structure would meet the Miami-Dade Hurricane Code requirements and meet the needs of the city. The applicant has long tolerated these costly financial burdens and they endure the unusual burden that comes with having beautiful backyard that cannot be used. It is from these difficulties that the applicant humbly seeks relief and asks their respective body for understanding.
That the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure.
The applicant responded, the applicant's home is extremely modest. The entire lot is 107 feet long and 97 feet wide, or 10,058 square feet, or total space. From the front of the house to the road is 53.1 feet. That represents 4,982 square feet, or 49.5% of unused space. The house is 26.1 feet with a 15-foot easement on either side, or approximately 1,670 square foot, big, representing 16.6% of the total space. The entire backyard is 27.8 feet, or 2,613 with 0.2 square feet, or 26% of the total space, lot space. The rear setback is 25 feet from the canal. The setback equates to 2,350 square foot, or 23.36 of the total lot. Since the entire backyard is 2,613 with 0.2 square feet, and the setback is 2,350 feet, the setback limits the owner to only being able to use 263 foot, or 2.6% of the entire lot space for a backyard. The 263 feet of available space only allows the applicant to cover 2 feet 9.5 inches of her backyard. This space does not allow enough room for 1 chair. It is the variance is granted, the structure will be 10 foot off the deck. The structure will have 2 to 6 inches posts. Ideally, the engineer would like to mount the post at the far outside corner of the structure, which would be at the end of the deck. In the alternative, the engineer has calculated that the structure could be and extend beyond the post 6 additional feet, which would call for a 10 feet setback from the canal. The shade structure is engineered to meet all the stringent code in order to receive the Miami-Dade hurricane approval.
That the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the ordinance.
The applicant responded, if the ordinance as explained to the applicant is to protect the sightline from all surrounding neighbors, it is only in harmony, it is welcome and fondly anticipated by one and all.
That such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare.
The applicant responded, if the variance is granted, then rather than Rather than the shade structure being injurious to the area, it will offer a very much needed breathing space for all neighboring homeowners who want to be outdoors and at the same time experience shade plus a breeze. While the wind tunnel is enforced, the constant blowing coupled with the sunlight's heat creates a blowtorch environment. The shade structure plus the wind will provide a cool place which could contribute to the public welfare.
Thank you. No other additional correspondence received. All right. At this time, any ex parte communications should either be disclosed by identifying the subject of the communication and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, or any correspondence be provided to the town clerk and made a part of the public record. In addition, each member of the board may identify the existence of any investigations or site visits he or she has conducted or any expert opinions received and disclose any conflicts of interest on this matter. Start with Bruce. Do you have anything to disclose?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Betty.
Yes, I went over 2 or 3 times. I got permission to go into several people's backyard on the opposite side of the waterway. I will say I never saw a breeze the entire time I was there, which does not say that there weren't breezes from time to time. I had to remove stuff from up from the altar. And then I looked at what the structure would mean. It would very definitely inhibit the people further up the waterway from the seeing in the waterway. And if they cover the structure, then you're getting into a real violation of
Betty, right now, just tell us if you had any ex parte communications. Right, but if you have any comments regarding the project,
Okay.
save them for later.
I looked on both sides to see what was going on.
Okay.
I went into 2 or 3 different people's backyards to see how it would affect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bob, do you have any? I have not seen the site personally. Carolyn?
I saw Ms. Johnston on Saturday when we were walking our dogs and asked if I could stop by Sunday morning just to take a look. So I did, and she showed me where the structure will go, and I thought the rendering makes it seem much larger than it actually is. That makes it look very deep. It doesn't extend over the whole pool. So anyway, I did see it.
Okay, thank you. We will now proceed with the hearing on this matter. Will the town clerk please swear in the witnesses?
Will anyone wishing to speak on this item, please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
When you come forward, please state your name and address clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in. And please speak directly to the microphone.
The applicant will now make its presentation.
Good morning. My name is Bob McAllister. This is Darlene Johnston. I am the significant other. Darlene has requested that I make the opening statement and then she will follow it all up with the details. In essence, it's a very simple request. We have a very pretty house, but at first blush, it looks like a great backyard. It's 28 foot facing the canal. And over the last 20 years, we've used every item that you can imagine to create some shade. It said in the comments, we spent thousands of dollars. And I'm glad you weren't there when there was any wind. Okay?
Yes.
The truth is, it does, if the umbrella is up and that wind is coming down that ridge, it's going to pick it up, it's going to throw it in the pool or out in the canal.
Even with the 250-pound base.
Let me finish, then you got it. Okay. And so so first of all, we had planned on having a 4th of July party. So every year, we go through this thing, putting up umbrellas and all that kind of stuff. So we had built the sun trellis. And when the city had informed us, hey, you made a mistake, you got to take that thing down, we took it down immediately in 24 hours at thousands of dollars expense because and immediately we introduced ourselves to the city and said, look, we're available for whatever it is you guys got to do. We just need help here, man. So that's what we did. And we met with all the folks at the city, and they told us what to do. That's why we prepared the package for you guys. Bottom line is, we only got 3 foot in our backyard. And 3 foot's not, it's this much. And the whole backyard is 28 foot, and it's like a frying pan. And you can't, our parents are like almost 90 years old. They come over, they can't stand in the sun for more than 15 to 20 minutes. They like
I
this.
can just say something?
Yep.
My mom had Mohs surgery on Monday. So this is really a health issue as well, and it's serious.
And should I just keep it open?
Sorry.
So the bottom line is, we're humbly begging you guys just to give us a chance to use our backyard. We got a pool, we got a deck, and we got no shade. We can't use it. And so this structure, okay, it meets all the Miami-Dade hurricane approvals. Like it said, it's 10 foot off the deck. It's about 15 foot wide, okay? And it would have like a table underneath it where we could eat. And it's a sun trellis. And, you know, it's engineered for the rain and for the shade. And we just want to be able to go in the backyard and use it, come home from work and have a backyard that we could use. Because right now, the setback is 20, 25 foot. Our backyard's 28. We only got 3 foot to work with. You can't do nothing. I'm so sorry. That's really it. Darlene, tell them whatever you got to say.
Can you put up the exhibit Bs, I believe, that show the damage and what I've had to endure? So I had a glass on top of my table. It's been in the pool. I've had to spend thousands of dollars having the pool drained. You just passed the picture. This is what I've been living with. All hurricane season, it's horrible for me. So I really appreciate you guys considering this for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. May the town make its presentation on the matter.
Good morning, Chair, board members, Corey O'Gorman, town planner. This item being presented today did come to the town, as was indicated by the applicant, through a code enforcement complaint regarding a pergola. The town investigated, found the pergola was installed without a permit and didn't meet the required setbacks. The property was not taken to code enforcement because, once again, as indicated by the applicant, the structure was taken down immediately. This is a request for a variance for the sun trellis structure from the requirements of section 6441 to allow the sun trellis to be located 7 feet 3 inches from the rear property line. Section 6441 requires accessory structure setbacks to be the same as principal buildings, which would be 25 feet from the property line. And the setback would be measured from the cantilever post indicated on this illustration. The post is brought in several feet, which you can see on the sketch that's in the applicant's package. That's all I have at the moment. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Guy, do you have anything to add on this?
I do not. Thank you.
Any questions for the town staff? At this time, any other member of the public who wishes to submit relevant information to the board may come forward and speak for a maximum of 3 minutes each. Please indicate whether you are for or against the project or neither for nor against the project. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Tom Perry. I live at 19 Harbor Drive South in Ocean Ridge. I've been a resident here for 21 years. Darlene's been here before me, and I'm going to be here in front of you hopefully in a few months and with the building permit on improving my house as well. Darlene has always kept a wonderful home and showed pride in her home. And the problem in the backyard has been a problem since I've known her. I've been over there many times, and there's wind coming through there all the time. I don't care whether you say it or not, but I've been over there many times, and pictures you see today it's been a lot worse. And I've helped her dig these trees and umbrellas out of the pool several times, and she really does everything to try to make her house look better for improvement. And from what I don't know nothing about the variances, and I'm not privy to all the details of what's going on here, but from a cosmetic standpoint, I think it's a beautiful addition. It's really not an encumbrance to anybody else would like to see, but that's not what me to decide. But I strongly approve, in my opinion, for the project, and I hope you all will consider it for well-being and beginning of the neighborhood as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? All right, at this time, does the applicant have any further comments?
Just that this, I don't know if I could stay in this house if this doesn't get passed, because I really can't enjoy it anymore. And, you know, I'm going to be 60, I'm retiring. I just can't take it anymore. And I love this town. I love my neighbors. I went to 13 homes around my home. Everyone has agreed, both neighbors on both sides of me. They said it does not impinge their view in any way. So I just hope you'll take that into consideration.
Thank you. Does the town staff have any final comments?
No, sure.
Okay. Any questions? Right. Yeah, please, Betty.
Question, did you write the letter that you took around and had all the neighbors sign?
Yes, I did.
So it wasn't an individual thought?
I brought with me all the photographs, everything of what it would look like. I sat down and I talked to each person and told them of the hardships that I've had, and they've all agreed that when it was up, the little kids next door said to me, "Oh my God, it's so cool and beautiful." I had to take it down. And, this cost me thousands of dollars. And I did it within 24 hours after I got yes, from Mr. Guy. So I've tried to do everything right. And I didn't know for a son, like I didn't need for the umbrellas or anything. I had sails put up. I've done everything. And I didn't know that I needed it. And I'm at your mercy.
Okay. Any other questions for the
Have you
town?
ever tried to retract the wall? awning?
Yes, we've done it all, man. Same thing. First off, the fabric sits in the sun, and then when it rains and the sun bakes it, after about 18 months, it just starts to get brittle and rip. And
Would you not retract it when you're not out at the pool enjoying the pool?
It doesn't cover the pool in any way. It's just the table. It goes, you see where,
she's talking about the old retractable.
oh, I'm so sorry.
So basically, the retractable stayed out like 5 foot. It's just like a canvas thing. It wasn't significant. Remember, I said we could already go 3 foot from the house. So that canopy that came out was about 5 or 6 foot. It didn't even get out to the dining room table. So it was just, kind of like it looked nice, but it didn't give us any protection from the sun. The big ones were more expensive than this. So, we tried everything. We tried everything. But this is Miami-Dade hurricane approval. The line, it's just gorgeous and awesome. We saw it at Frenchman's Creek, Frenchman's Reserve, Admiral's Cove, Ibis Country Club, Thousand North. So, wow, that is awesome. Where can we get that? We found out what it was. You ever see that roof that opens and closes? That's what it is. It's a sun trellis. It's awesome.
And does that roof close so it's a solid structure on the top?
In the event of rain, it closes automatically. And then in the event of, there's a Wi-Fi module that's connected to the weather channel. That as soon as the weather channel puts out a signal that says the gusts hit 85 miles an hour, the louvers open automatically and shuts down, and it minimizes the uplift, and that's how you get the Miami-Dade hurricane approval. It's awesome.
I have a question. Would they be prohibited forever of enclosing the sides of the structure to keep the sun out? Do they need a permit?
Yeah, thank you, Durant, you got building official. So it depends on how the Board of Adjustment describes this variance. If there's no conditions and it's just allowed to be within the setback, then I assume that whatever they do to it, they're getting a setback that they can put a structure within. If you guys define it that you can never put sides on, then I believe that is up to the pleasure of the commission through the council.
So in other words, they would be able to make this a closed-in structure. What would that do to the farm? The farm.
Floor area ratio.
Right, it actually would go towards the farm.
I would ask council on that question. I don't think it would, if we grant today's approval, would extend to signs, would it?
Right, you would just need to clarify that if you're granting the approval today, that it's for this structure and that you're not granting it for any further structures, enclosure, and if they ever wanted to enclose it, they would need to come back for a further variance.
Exactly.
That was my original.
So
Thank
does
you.
that mean when the structure in the future is demolished, this variance would not run with the land?
They could put that condition on it, or you could simply say that if this deteriorates and needs to be replaced, it could be replaced with the same. So that the variance truly is specific to this type of structure and nothing else.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we sign off on that. We don't want to put anything on the sides. We just want to have shade above.
All right, Carolyn, you had a question?
Just, what are the exact dimensions? It's 16 feet wide, and how far off the
I have
house?
it right here, man. It is exactly 16.6, 16 foot 6 inches wide by 23 foot long.
And what is the material that it's made of? I'm
It's
just thinking.
aluminum. Everything is aluminum, man. Except for the screws and bolts. Those are stainless steel, they said.
What really bothers me about this, unless we can really restrict it, what happens if more people along that motorway want to do the same thing? Then you inhibit the ability of the other people on the motorway to view. Then we would put real restrictions on it, so if anything happens, they have to come back for another variance.
Right, you can put conditions on any approval that you believe are necessary to perhaps minimize the impact on adjacent property owners. But with all variances, you have to look at them on a case-by-case basis.
I know, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, so, but you can absolutely put conditions on it, you know, and staying consistent with the criteria that you look at to lower the hardship for them and for adjacent property owners within your purview.
Thank you. Any more questions or discussion?
Amongst us or to the applicant?
To the applicant and the town staff, is that it? All right. I now declare the quasi judicial hearing closed, and we will now proceed with comments and deliberation by the board. Discussion, Bruce, would you like to lead?
Unless I have a misunderstanding, Betty, just for clarification, how do you see this as impairing neighbors' views? Because the post is 6 by 6, which is probably the same as a tree. And it's just a horizontal structure below the second floor.
I went into backyards on both sides, for people that I knew, and to see what effect that would have on the entire neighborhood. And it is very close to the water. That's one reason I asked about going in, because that would completely block.
Yeah, I get that.
People further up. I mean, I've been here long enough to see things with this.
Gotcha.
Do you have any comments, Betty?
I think we should have very severe restrictions if we pass it.
Well, it would again be unique to this property. Right.
I would suggest that whoever makes the motion limit it to this and only this structure.
We're great with that.
Carolyn, do you want to comment on that?
I have read through all of this and saw the situation firsthand, and it does appear that Ms. Johnson has exhausted all other options. I think in terms of aesthetics, a retractable awning would be more of an obstruction to anyone's view than this, which is a very sleek design. And, you know, I think it kind of enhances the backyard and their ability to enjoy it.
I also take note of her inclusion of all the neighbors saying that they wouldn't be adverse to this and kind of consenting. I think that
On both
bodes,
sides of the canal.
yeah, really bodes strongly for the argument. All right, at this point, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the request and limit it to this structure and only this structure, and have the owners sign a notarized agreement with this motion.
No problem, thank you.
And just for clarification on the motion, should something happen that this structure goes into a state of disrepair, would they be allowed to replace it with the same structure?
Okay, you took the words right out of my mouth. That's the motion.
That's well stated, Bob. Thank you. Do I have a second for Bob's motion?
Second.
Thank you, Bruce. All right. Carla, would you call the roll on the vote, please? On the motion, Adam.
Member Sloat?
Yes.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Bruce Hinden.
Member Hendon?
Aye.
Member Bingham?
Aye.
Chair Cody?
Aye.
Member Cassidy?
Aye.
Oh, the motion carries.
Thank you. May I ask, what are the next steps then? We'll have to get something certified. You want to provide me with a
Well,
letter?
there's a copy of the variance.
Ms. Johnson, the town clerk will be in contact with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
There
Good
being
job.
no other business before us, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move so.
All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much.